Hello, Laverne here. Thank you for joining me. This video is a response video to a two-part video that was put up having to do with an interview that Richard Dawkins gives to a journalist. And I'm going to be refuting some of the things Dawkins has said. Now, to begin with, I want to say that Dawkins is a revisionist. He is trying to rewrite history. And the reason I say that is because of some things he has to say about slavery and the abolishing of slavery. Because in his second video, the second video to the interview, he claims that there are a number of different movements, things such as feminism and the abolishing of slavery, that were not the result of people of faith hitting these movements, but rather, and I'm going to try and quote him here, mainly secular, cultural, evolutionary events. That's what he's saying was responsible for abolishing slavery. This, though, is an absolute lie. When we look at England, it was people such as William Wilberforce, Thomas Clarkson, and John Newton. Men such as this were the people who headed the movement to abolish slavery. And they were deeply committed men of God. Then when you look on the other side of the pond, when you look at the U.S., the main character, the main player to abolish slavery was Abraham Lincoln. And there can be no question that he was a man of God. And then we look at the Canadian side, looking at the Underground Railroad. The main players in that movement were Christians. So for Dawkins to say that the abolishing of slavery was mainly the result of a secular evolutionary event, cultural evolutionary event, that is an absolute lie. And I don't understand how people would not call him on this, how it is that people would support him in this belief. Now, going on to Hitler and Stalin. This guy loves to promote the idea that fundamentalists are responsible for all the woes in the world. So people like Hitler, he claims, were Catholic. And then you look at other events in history as well. I want to make it clear here that Hitler was not Catholic. Hitler claimed to be Catholic in his early years in order to help him rise to power, because he was able to get a lot of support claiming to be Catholic. But he also referred to the writings of Martin Luther, who was a reformist and who most Catholics hated. They were at odds with each other. But he referred to the writings of Martin Luther to give credence to the extermination of the Jews. And the reason for that is because Martin Luther himself wrote that if a Jew would not convert, then they should either be exiled or killed. And so how can you say he was a Catholic when he referred so heavily to the writings of Martin Luther? And then in his later years, Hitler was very much into the occult. This is very, it's common knowledge, and I'm sure that Dawkins is aware of this. And delving so much into the occult, he became influenced by the dark side of religion. He was heavily influenced by Satan and satanic forces. He was influenced by evil spirits. Now, to say that he was Catholic and that the whole Hitler reign of power and everything was in response to religion is just ridiculous. And then on the other side, when it comes to people such as Stalin or the government of China or government of Korea, governments that are atheists and try to wipe out religion, he wants to ignore this. He wants to claim that, well, it's irrelevant. Stalin's belief that there was no God is completely irrelevant according to Dawkins. And again, this is a lie. This is an absolute absurdity. How can people buy this line of BS? People who have no belief in a God, they believe that this is the only life that they have for them. And to say then that when they go on and commit the atrocities that they do, that it has nothing to do with their unbelief, it's ridiculous. And yet he gets away with it, and yet so many atheists buy into this. Now, they went on to talk about love and why it is that people will do things, will do good works for people who are strangers that they don't know. Well, Dawkins had an answer for why it is that we do things we do good deeds for people we do know and family. He said it's a little bit more difficult to explain why we do it for strangers, why it is we feel empathy and want to help out strangers. And the way he explains it is actually a misfire of evolution. Now, a misfire means it's a mistake, that it wasn't supposed to happen. And yet that's what he claims it is. That when people have this desire to help out strangers, people that they will not be coming in contact with again, he claims it's an actual misfire of evolution. But he tries to give a reason for it in even coming about in the early days of evolution. And he says that it was probably because there were so few people that you knew you would be coming into contact with them, and so you tried to be nice to them. What a theory. Now, the question also came up as to, would it then evolve out of us? If it's a misfire, and if it's something that really has no purpose, is it something then in the future that humans would evolve out of, this empathy and this desire to help out strangers? His answer is that that is a possibility, but that it's unlikely. And he gives an analogy that just blows me away, that made absolutely no sense to me. He gave an analogy to the use of condoms during sex, saying that it's kind of like lust, that we have this lust that's built into us. And because we use condoms, there's no reason to believe that we would eventually evolve out of lust and the desire to have sex, simply because we're using condoms. But the thing is, condoms are used for the very purpose of satisfying our lust. Condoms are used so we can satisfy our lust without the fear of disease and pregnancy. So how then does he make the connection that the use of condoms could somehow affect us to evolve out of the desire for lust? It just makes absolutely no sense. If the desire to do good for others is a misfire, then how is it that this misfire has lasted so long? All right, that's about all I have. I look forward to comments. I really like to know what Christians think of this man's videos. Till next time, peace and blessings.